Yo guys, welcome to the Zelda Fiction. Today we are gonna see, what if Naruto learnt Fuinjutsu and got harem with Hanabi, Hinata and Tenten. Part 3. If you end up liking this video, please consider subscribe, so without further ado, let's get into the video. With the help of her father Ino was able to gain a few pounds over the next few months and started to train with everyone. While training with everyone she got to meet Enko a bit more often and started to learn from her. Ino took to learning the Hibi fighting style and a few other things from Enko. Like poisons, antidotes, Henjutsu, and, since Ino was a Yamanaka, some interrogation. That last one gave Ino a good look at the darker side of being a ninja. She also found out that she had the same elemental affinity as Naruto, wind. When Ino found this out she was surprised, most of her clan had water and earth affinities. So she also started to work on the control exercises for wind, but that was going as fast as expected. Ino was a bit discouraged when she found out how far ahead the others were. They could probably take out a Chunin one-on-one and all of them could give Enko a workout. So after Ino got the gravity seal she started to work with the group more to try to catch up. The rest of the group got a better grasp of their elements. They hadn't mastered their elements but they had control that most Chunin would be proud of. Naruto and Sazasha even started to work with a second element, water for Naruto and wind for Sazasha. Hinata, with the help of her angel Cool Mint, was starting to learn the celestial tongue but that was extremely difficult. Just saying a few words would exhaust a person. Her angel said it would get easier with time and once Hinata learned her true name. Another thing that she learned to do was to see the soul of a person. In the beginning it was just the size of someone's soul, but as she worked at it she was able to see different characteristics. Like if a person was good or bad and with a bit of concentration she was able to tell if that person is lying or not. It also worked as a sensory ability outside of the Byakugan as she could see a soul much further than her Byakugan with no waste of chakra. Yakumo, over the next few months, was able to, work with Naruto in collecting lust to start learning from her new friend Sadesna. The first thing they worked on was casting Gain Jutsu with just a touch. She was getting that easy enough, but if she wanted to learn to cast with just a look she would have to collect a lot more lust. Hanabi worked with her spirit and was able to modify a few earth jutsu. Like making the stone gauntlets from 3 inches of stone covering her hands and forearms to about half an inch with the same amount of stone. She was also able to use stone skin with just one hand seal. Tenten was working with her spirit and was able to magnetize some of her weapons and she was working on controlling them in the air. She was also continuing to work with Naruto on her Kenjutsu. The academy was the same as ever and Naruto couldn't be more bored if he tried. At least it was a free period right now or Naruto may have had to do something drastic. Like the time that Naruto was able to put a water balloon launcher on the ceiling and launch balloons filled with paint at Irika. Or the time that he was able to get a pair of cat ear and tail on Mizuki that matched his hair color and wouldn't come off till the end of the day. Naruto looked around at what the girls were doing. Ino was reading a sealing book that Naruto had given her, just the basics. Sazasha was playing the violin, Irika didn't mind her playing, as every ninja needs a hobby. Hanabi was just thinking to herself and Hinata was reviewing the class work. This is so boring, Naruto said. Sazasha smiled and put down her violin that she was playing and said, if they were teaching seals or henjutsu you would be interested in class. Naruto grinned at that and said, I could teach those classes. Hanabi rolled her eyes, you probably could, but there is no need to stroke your ego. Why don't they, Fuinjutsu I don't think they would teach anyone henjutsu before you graduate Ino said, as she read the book in her hand. I don't know, how about we ask Irika? Naruto said as he raised his hand. Yes Naruto, Irika said. Why don't we study seals in the academy, Naruto asked. Well the council took it out of the curriculum about 10 years ago. Said the art was too difficult for students to learn, Irika said. Ino looked up and said, really, I have a book for beginners and the basics are simple enough. As long as you know the basics you could make your own sealing scrolls and explosive tags. That may be Ino but the council has a say in what we teach in the academy, Irika said. Which council, the citizens, or the ninja council? Saizasha said. Both, Iruka said. Why does the citizens council have any say in the academy? Naruto asked. I'm friends with older ninja and the standards back when they were in the academy were higher. They were, but the citizens council has gotten more power over the last 10 or 15 years, Iruka said. Who are the ninja you have talked to? Anko Mitarashi and Hana Inazuka, Naruto said. You know my sister, Kiba asked surprised. Yeah, she's a great sparring partner and the Harumaru brothers seem to like me too, Naruto said. Who are the Harumaru brothers? Sakura asked. My sister's partners like Akamaru and me, but she has 3 partners, Kiba said. Back onto what we were talking about, why the academy doesn't teach at least the basics of all the ninja arts, Naruto asked. Other than seal we do teach the other arts Naruto, Iruka said. Not really Iruka-sensei, you don't teach how to make or counter poisons, what elemental chakra is, medical ninjutsu, and I bet not even half of the students in this class even know what henjutsu is, Saizasha said. Iruka blushes at the last one and said, I don't think that last one is a subject that I can teach in the academy Saizasha. I'll give you that one but the other ones could be taught, Saizasha said. What is henjutsu? Sakura asked. Henjutsu is the art of seduction. Naruto, do you have a scroll on it on you? Saizasha asked looking to Naruto. Most of the students were surprised at what henjutsu was and were now looking at Naruto wondering why Saizasha would ask him for a scroll on seduction. Let me look, Naruto said as he took out a scroll and with a poof there were 10 scrolls on his desk. He looked through them and picked up one and tossed it to Saizasha. That is a scroll on the basics, Naruto said. Sakura furrowed her brow and asked, Naruto, were all these scrolls on henjutsu? Yeah, Naruto said. Why do you have them? Sakura said. I stumbled onto the subject by accident and found it interesting. So I read up on it in my free time, Naruto said. Wait, do you practice that subject? Kiba asked. Naruto gave Kiba a grin and said, like I said, Hana makes a great sparring partner. What, you seduce my sister? Kiba all but screamed. Naruto rolled his eyes and said, no, I'm still getting to know the female body but I can give a killer massage. Kiba settled down a little at that and said, you better not. Or what Kiba, you'll stop me, Naruto said, Hana's a big girl and can make her own decisions. Kiba growled at Naruto and Hanabi said, that and you love the way she looks in a thong. Kiba pounded on his desk and said, what have you done with my sister? Naruto rolled his eyes again and said, calm down Kiba. To give a good massage you have to work with bare skin. I always ask if she is okay with something before I start. Kiba still growled at him. Getting back on topic, Saizasha said, Iruka could give a few lessons on poisons, what elemental chakra is, medical ninjutsu. Iruka sighed and said, I will run it by the council and if they give me the go-ahead I will. So go back to studying quietly. The class listened and went back to looking at their books or whatever they were doing with the exception of Kiba and Naruto. Kiba was still glaring at Naruto and Naruto was happy that they may have some more interesting classes soon. It was Sunday morning in the training ground and as the sun began to rise, 2 people walked on to the training ground. The first one was Naruto but he had a change of clothes. He had on a dark blue sleeveless shirt with a dark orange X on it that goes from shoulders to hips and it had the Uzumaki swirl on the back of it. He also had dark blue pants and a dark orange strip on the side. The biggest change was that he had on a pair of blue gauntlets on his hands that nearly went up to his elbow. The other person that came into the training ground was Saizasha. She had on her normal clothes on. A black shirt and pants with red trim and the Uchiha emblem on the right side of her chest. The new things were the pair of black gloves she was wearing and the sword she had at her side. The sword had no guard and the handle and sheath were made of a dark red wood. Saizasha took a deep breath and said, got to love the morning air. Naruto smiled and said, yeah, but we aren't here for the morning air. Saizasha's smile was a bit like that of a predator seeing its prey and said, it has been a while since we could go all out, hasn't it? Hinata would never try to hurt me, Tenten is a long-range fighter, she is getting better with her sword, and I can blow all her weapons out of the air. Hanabi is a good taijutsu fighter and is getting better at earth style, and Yakumo is good if I want to practice breaking genjutsu. You on the other hand have all of those, maybe not at the same level as they do, and you're the one that can give me the best challenge. Naruto said. Sazasha's smile got bigger and said, you sure know how to flatter a girl. Naruto got into a loose stance and said, it's one of the perks of studying genjutsu. You don't stick your foot in your mouth as often. Sazasha got into the Uchiha fighting stance and said, you still put your foot in your mouth every so often, but that is some of the charm about you, Naruto-kun. They quieted down after that and started to do something that they learned from Enko. They started to produce killer intent. Not a lot, mind you, but for someone in the academy they were doing great, and a moment later Naruto took off. He started with a punch to the head, but Sazasha dodged at the last moment. She went for a kidney punch only for Naruto to knock her hand out of the way and went for a left hook. Sazasha backed up a bit to dodge and unsheathed her sword. It was an interesting sword in the fact that it was pure black and seemed to absorb light. Sazasha got into her kenjutsu stance and got ready to strike. She didn't have to wait long as Naruto came at her. He came at her with a stabbing motion with his gauntlet's inch-long claws, and Sazasha thrust forward and dodged right at the same time. Naruto dodged right too, and used his gauntlets in a slashing motion. Sazasha at that moment had her blade on the left side of Naruto's neck and tried to take his head off with a slash. Naruto jumped back and smiled a bit. I can always count on you to not pull any punches, Sazasha. What would be the point of that? In a spar I want to be pushed to my limit and try to go further, Sazasha said. She then stuck her sword into the ground and did some quick hand seals and took a deep breath. Sazasha then picked up her sword and said, fire style, fireball jutsu, as she blew a fireball at her sword. The fire was immediately sucked into the sword that now glowed a dark orange. She then swung the sword at open air and an arc of fire came out. Naruto got out of the way of the arc and moved in close, doing a few hand seals, and said, wind style, wind blade. He flattened his hand and a near-transparent blade came from Naruto's forefingers about 2 feet long. Naruto used his new sword to parry Sazasha's sword in a shower of sparks. Naruto was sure to not lock blades with Sazasha for more than a moment or she would use it to her advantage. Naruto and Sazasha are about even in their kenjutsu skill, but there were a few differences. Naruto had the advantage in strength, but Sazasha had more flexibility. Naruto had a small edge in speed, but Sazasha had better reflexes. She did have her Sharingan. In a few minutes Naruto's wind sword was running out of power because every time the swords touched Sazasha's took a little chunk of Naruto's with it. Naruto knew his sword wouldn't last much longer, so put all his strength into one more strike with it to get Sazasha's sword away from her. With his strike, he was able to get the sword out of her hand into the ground a little ways away. As the strength in Naruto's sword faded and he watched the sword fall and lose its orange glow, he thought to himself that was too easy. He found out a few seconds later, why it was so easy to get Sazasha's sword away from her. The new seals on Sazasha's gloves gave off a few orange sparks and caught fire. She had let go of her sword and now Naruto was overextended and wide open. Sazasha did a two-handed punch to Naruto's chest and said, flame burst. At that moment fire exploded on Naruto's chest and blasted him back into a tree in a cloud of smoke. Sazasha then formed a few hand seals and said, fire style, fireball jutsu, and a fireball about 3 meters wide launched at the smoke cloud that was Naruto. When the fireball was a few meters from Naruto, Sazasha heard, water style, water bullet. A ball of water came out of the smoke and turned the fireball to steam. Sazasha found something odd about Naruto's voice, it was higher pitch. A few moments later she found out why. As the steam cleared there was Naruto in all her glory. Well, this is new, Sazasha said as the new curvy Naruto came into view. Naruto's shirt had now a new hole between her new B-cups and there was even some damage to the chain mail under the shirt. Naruto smiled and said, Yami and Hinata have been experimenting with this form and we found out that in this form I have a water affinity. Sazasha laughed a little and said, I didn't know that Hinata was into this kind of thing. Me neither, but you learn something new every day, Naruto said. With that said, Naruto dashed at Sazasha. Sazasha was a bit surprised that Naruto was now faster and wasn't fighting like he usually did. Instead of using a loose form of the hard fight, Naruto was using the Hibi style with his newfound flexibility. Sazasha, with her Sharingan on, saw that Naruto was pumping a lot of chakra through his body to be faster, stronger, and get better reflexes. Sazasha knew one other thing about Naruto: he could burn 5 times more chakra than her and she would still run out of chakra first. Naruto was having a great time with this spar in his female form. There were a few things that changed now that he was a she. 1. Now, his flexibility could give Hanabi a run for her money. 2. He had a bit better chakra control, not much but still. The last thing was that for some reason Naruto's elemental affinity changed from wind to water. As Fen Naruto, his control over water was a bit below that of his wind control when he was himself. There were a few drawbacks. He wasn't as strong in his female form and his wind control drops. All in all, it was a good change to make when he was fighting fire element people like Sazasha. Sazasha went back for her sword, but Naruto cut her off with a Seal Fuinjutsu style Hodo 4, Byakurai. A beam of lightning tore across Sazasha's path, making her stop for a moment. That was all Naruto needed. Naruto took out another seal and said, Fuinjutsu style Bakudo 4, Hanawa. Sazasha was already ready for the jutsu to hit, as she knew how Naruto's Bakudo worked. They worked by sealing the chakra pathway much like the Hyuga style of fighting, but were a bit less effective. While the Hyuga style completely blocks the chakra pathways, Naruto's Bakudo gunked them up along with some physical restraint. Sazasha exited the chakra in her pathways to help stave off Naruto's Bakudo from affecting her too much. Hinata and Hanabi could get out of a binding like this in a moment, but it took Sazasha a few seconds to get it off, and that's all Naruto needed. With one more seal Fuinjutsu style Hodo 31, Shikaho, Sazasha broke the bindings a moment too late and rocketed away, much like she had done to Naruto a minute earlier, by a foot-wide ball of red light. Sazasha got up a few moments later a little worse for wear and rushed to grab her sword and, with a bit of a bloodthirsty grin, knew that today was going to be a good day. After her spar with Naruto that day, Sazasha went home for a good bath to work out the kinks in her sore muscles. She saw her brother Sasuke sitting in their living room looking rather ominously and knew that was never a good thing. When she came in the room, her brother just looked at her with narrowed eyes. Sazasha looked at her brother and asked, "What do you want, Sasuke?" "Why do you hang out with those weaklings?" Sasuke asked. Sazasha raised an eyebrow and said, "Because they are my friends." Sasuke scowled at that and said, "Why are you making friends with them?" Sazasha answered with a raised eyebrow, "You are asking me why I made friends with 4 clan heirs, 2 jonin, a genin, and a soon-to-be seal master. Is that what you are asking me, Sasuke?" Sasuke was a bit taken back by her statement but continued with his point, "Those people will only hold you back." "No, Sasuke, they will not hold me back. They are pushing me forward. They are the best in our class," Sazasha said. "I'm the best of the class. I'm going to be Rookie of the Year when we graduate." Sasuke all but snarled at the thought of someone being stronger than him. Sazasha narrowed her eyes at his tone and walked toward, "No, Sasuke, you aren't the strongest in our class. You aren't even the strongest in this house." This just pissed Sasuke off. He knew he was stronger than his sister and was going to prove it, and he went to attack her, but as soon as his punch touched her she dissolved into a black dust. Sasuke was only confused for a moment as Sazasha spoke into Sasuke's ear, "You couldn't even tell you were already in my Genjutsu." Sasuke spun around to look at his sister and was shocked to see her with the Sharingan, and it was almost complete with 3 tomo in her right eye and 2 in the other. He lashed out again only for her to catch his arm this time. "You can achieve much greater results when you train with others and have them push you to your limits." Just to emphasize her point, she squeezed his wrist and brought the great last Uchiha to his knees. Sazasha then took a look of pity and said, "Is this really all you're capable of?" That only made Sasuke angrier and he threw a kunai at Sazasha only for her to dissolve into dust too. Apparently that is all you are capable of, Sasuke. Sasuke looked to Sasasha to see that she hadn't even moved from the spot where she was standing at the beginning of their conversation. He had been under her Genjutsu from the beginning of their conversation. Sasasha just left a stunned Sasuke in her wake as she left the room. Sasuke just stood there and glared at the spot she had been standing. Sasasha had not only got him in a Genjutsu but she had put him in one that had caused him real pain. Sasuke could still feel the grip and the phantom pain of Sasasha's illusion trying to crush his wrist. It only pissed him off more that his sister had gotten stronger than him, the last Uchiha right under his nose, and he couldn't see it. He would train harder and longer so he could prove that he was the strongest and to one day avenge his clan. Itachi had once said that he wasn't worth killing. Did that mean that Sasasha was worth killing early to make her not a threat? Did that mean Itachi saw Sasuke as never being able to match him? Sasuke didn't know, but the more he thought about it the more it pissed him off. When Sasasha got to her room and knew the moment she walked in someone else was there. She touched the security seals she had in her room and turned them to their max and said, "Come out." In one of the dark corners of her room a figure in a long black cloak and a blank white mask came, and that was all the features that Sasasha could make out. "Your report," the figure said in a monotone voice. Sasasha looked at him for a moment and said, "There isn't much new to report. Naruto can now fight in his female form and it changes his elemental affinity to water. There are a few other changes but that is the most important. There is still no way that Naruto will leave the village. He has too much to lose if he left, that hasn't changed." The figure just nodded and was about to leave when Sasasha said one last thing. "You may want to watch my brother a bit more as I just showed him the difference in our strength a few moments ago and he was not happy about it." The figure seemed to consider this new information for a moment, nodded and left the room. Sasasha sneered after the figure left and looked a bit like her brother at that moment. She hated that man with a passion that few could even fathom. She had to report about Naruto, Hinata, Hanabi, Yakumo, Tenten, the new member of their group Ino, and even Anko. She hated having to do this, but she had no other choice. She would kill that man someday, and finally have this weight off her shoulders. Tenten was getting in a little training of her own. Tenten had started to work with Anko a few weeks after meeting her and they had a sort of student-teacher relationship. Anko was no slouch when it came to weapons. In Anko's mind anything was a weapon. Be it a kunai or a dango stick, anything could be a weapon. Guy was a little weary of letting his student training with her, but it only took Anko a short chat with him to see that it may be a good idea to have his kunoichi train under another every once in a while. It only took Guy a few weeks to note that it was a good decision with some of the improvements that Tenten was making. Anko couldn't help Tenten much with her lightning affinity. Anko had a fire and earth affinity, but when it came to hand-to-hand combat she was one of the best kunoichi in the village for the job. So the days that Tenten trained with Anko it was mostly sparring matches with her or Kusaburo. Tenten was getting more familiar with many of her weapons, mostly her bow staff, axe, and especially her sword. She was also getting used to her new ability to magnate her kunai and shuriken. She could keep track of about 10 to 15 in the air while she's fighting. Any more than that takes too much concentration to keep them in the air and use her weapons. That brought Tenten to where she is now. After a few weeks of training with Anko, Anko thought Tenten was ready to be introduced to her favorite training ground, 44, the Forest of Death. In the beginning Tenten hated this forest, but after a few weeks she figured out why Anko brought her here. It was the perfect place to get combat experience outside of the bandit clearing missions that her team went on. Tenten was now fighting a swarm of giant spiders, which had to be the size of your average dog. In the beginning it was harder for Tenten to kill the spiders. She had to use her axe, kanabo, or exploding kunai just to get through the spider's exoskeleton. Now though she could use her bow staff and sword to get through the spiders. Tenten was at the entrance of the spider's den, which was a grove of very dense trees with a tunnel web going from the ground to almost the canopy of the forest, covering an area of about a city block. She was currently smashing the spiders with her bow staff. One spider leaped at her from above, but Tenten saw it coming and with a poof of smoke she was now holding a sword and cut it in two. Another poof later and spin of her staff at the one that tried to take advantage of the distraction were knocked back into their tunnel web. Tenten leaped back and a poof of smoke. There was a half-dozen kunai in the air. Tenten waved her hand forward and the kunai took off at high speed and all hit the head of the spider she had just knocked back. A moment later they all exploded, leaving half-dozen less spiders. After that Tenten got back to work with her sword. Where Anko was standing she could see that Tenten's skill with a sword had gone up quite a bit from when she had started to train Tenten. One of the reasons for that was that Tenten was facing an opponent that was trying to kill her. Maybe she should introduce Tenten to Heiate Gecko or Yugao Yuzuki, they were the best kenjutsu users in the village. For now though she would just watch to see what she could have Tenten work on next. This wouldn't be the last time Tenten fought these spiders but she had a plan today. One of the things Tenten had noted about the spiders is that their silk was extremely strong and it gave Tenten an idea. What if she made her clothes out of that silk? It could probably stop lighter attacks like kunai, shuriken, and some glancing blows from weapons. She had even seen the silk survive some of her weaker elemental attacks. Today she was going to catch a few of the spiders and put one of the new seals she had made on them. Tenten saw her chance to a few spiders, she only needed 4 or 5, and she took it. She cut one last spider in half and her sword poofed away leaving a scroll in her hand. Tenten opened the scroll and threw it on the ground under a few spiders as she made the ram seal. The seal glowed for a moment and then a strong wind picked up. The scroll started to suck in anything above it. One of the spiders was smart enough to leap away, but the others were sucked into the scroll. Tenten counted 6, more than she expected, get sucked into the scroll. She quickly leaped to pick up the scroll before the spiders swarmed the area again and leaped to where Anko was. Anko looked at her and asked, "What's with the scroll?" Tenten smiled and answered, "I want to see it. I could make some clothes out of the silk of these spiders." Anko nodded. It had been done before and they were always high-quality clothes for ninja. The spiders don't take too kindly to someone taking their silk. Tenten nodded and said, "I figured as much, but I have a new seal that may help with that." "What kind of seal?" Anko asked, not liking that Tenten may be talking about a slave seal. Anko had something like that on her neck and didn't want a somewhat student of hers looking into seals like that. "It's an animal taming seal for unruly animals. I may have to modify it for these spiders, as they are quite a bit stronger than a dog, but I'm confident I can do it," Tenten said. That was a bit better than what Anko thought what she was thinking about, but still it was a slippery slope to be on, and she said, "Be careful with seals like those, you may cause more harm than good." Tenten was confused for a moment on what Anko could be talking about but got it a few moments later and said a little frantically, "Oh no, I would never make a seal to make something against its will." Anko nodded and said, "Just be careful." Tenten nodded and Anko continued, "Now I believe it's time to end today's training and for you to treat me to some dango," finishing with a smile. Tenten only hung her head. Having Anko train her wasn't cheap, as Anko had a dango addiction that could rival Naruto's addiction to ramen. With that they left the forest to get back to the village and to Anko's favorite dango shop. Hinata was having a good last few months, and with graduation just a few weeks away she was looking forward to get to be on a team with her friends. The last few months have been busy for her as she was now almost Naruto's secretary and his girlfriend. As to why Hinata is now Naruto's secretary was the fact that she had found out a few months ago that Naruto was keeping all of his money underneath some lost floorboards in his room. That was an epic face palm moment for Hinata. Naruto was keeping nearly 8 million yen under his floor from the seals that he sells to the shop that Tenten works at. Hinata had asked why all that money was under his floor and not in a bank or in a sealing scroll. Naruto had said that he had tried, but he always got kicked out of the bank before he could even get a word out, and as for the scroll he hadn't thought of that. Hinata had to sigh at that. She should have probably seen that one coming. So Hinata did the one thing she could do for him, she opened an account. Hinata had to say it was an interesting day. She went to one of the best bank in the village with all of Naruto's money in a scroll. It wasn't too odd for children from clans to open an account, but that was usually after they became a ninja. Hinata went straight to one of the more high-end bankers and asked for a meeting. They granted her request, and after they saw the amount she was depositing they were more than happy to open an account, but they had a few questions as to how she got this money. She made up a story that her father wanted her to get experience dealing with money and they bought it. The work Naruto was doing at the steel fan weapon shop only covered about 8.5 million of that money, the rest was all from some custom jobs he had been asked to do. He was still receiving some payments from some of those jobs. Naruto had gotten 2 custom jobs from the Hokage. They were orders for Naruto's scroll and book security clamps, about 5 times what he was used to, but he got them all to the Hokage with a few days before the deadline with Tenten's help. The other order was some of Naruto's custom seals. The main 2 were the barrier seal and the invisibility seal that Enko had put in a report as to why there would be a few new beings in the village and a new recruit for their village, Kusaburo, Enko's new friend. Hinata had helped him negotiate that deal for all the research and for the full seal array for these seals. Naruto made about 2 million for those 2 seals and more for all the scroll and book security clamps. The other job that Naruto had done is what shocked Hinata the most. Naruto got a job from the Hyuga clan. Her father Hayashi Hyuga had found out about Hinata's bank account for Naruto when the bank had sent a bank statement to him on Hinata's account. They were just informing him on how his daughter was spending what they thought was his money. Flashback. Hayashi called Hinata into his office and was now sitting on the other side of his desk. Hinata was cool and collected for anything her father had for her. Hinata and Hanabi were about even in skill, with Hinata being faster and Hanabi having better form, so the elders of the clan were willing to let the choosing of the next clan to wait until a clear winner was found. Hinata just waited for her father to speak. Hayashi looked to his daughter and said, "I received a most interesting letter today for the bank saying that you have 11.5 million yen in the bank. My question to you is, how did you manage to get that much money?" Hinata's eyes widened a little at that, not expecting the letters to go to her father as she knew she set it up to go to Naruto's apartment. Instead of answering right away, Hinata asked, "Why did you get a letter on that account?" Hinata's father gave a very stern look but answered, "The letter came with the manager of the bank along with the account information. Now answer my question." Hinata looked at her father for a moment before answering, "It's not my money, it's Naruto's." This threw Hayashi a bit for a loop and he asked the obvious question, how did he come by so much money? Naruto has been selling the seals that he makes to a local weapon shop, and has been even commissioned by the Hokage to make large quantities of seals along with selling some of his more advanced seals. Hinata said to her father. This surprised Hayashi even more. He had known that Naruto was practicing the art of Fuinjutsu, but he had no idea that he was advanced enough to start making a profit from it. Even the Hokage acknowledged his skill by paying Naruto for seals. "How many seal is he selling?" Hayashi asked. Hinata thought for a moment and said, "He sells 2,000 paper seals and 400 book and scroll security clamps a month to the steel fan weapons shop. The demand for his seals is going up, so I wouldn't be surprised if those numbers go up. Naruto may sell the seal design of those that he sells now to the shop owner and start to sell the shop new seals. I have talked to Naruto about this, but he isn't sure if it is the right move for him to make. It's his decision to make, so I only give him my opinion." The Hokage wanted 2,000 of those book and scroll security clamps and the sale of 2 of his more advanced seals. Hayashi thought about this for a moment as he asked the next 2 questions he had, "Why is the account in your name and what are these security clamps?" Hinata spoke as she took a scroll out of her pocket. "The bank wouldn't let Naruto in to make an account, so I made one for him, and me and Hanabi help Naruto if he ever has a problem or question about money. I've more or less become his account manager." The scroll that Hinata had just taken out had a steel ring around it and Hayashi saw that there was sealing script pounded into the steel. This is a scroll security clamp. They can be set to unlock to blood, chakra, or password and have some durability seals on the metal so someone can't just break or cut them off. Naruto had improved them from the first ones that he made. Those could be thrown into a fire and be pulled out fine, but now they can withstand D and many C-class jutsu. Hayashi held out his hand for the scroll and Hinata handed it to him. He looked at the round seal that was pounded into the metal. He knew a bit of seals and knew that what he was seeing was not the whole seal. If he had to guess, he would say the rest of the seal was on the inside of the metal ring, maybe put there when the metal was still red hot. The malleable metal would then be formed around the seal that was on a rod of some kind. He turned on his Byakugan just to confirm his suspicions and saw that he was right. "These are well made," Hayashi said, giving Naruto a small compliment, surprising his daughter again as she gave a nod. Hayashi thought for a few moments more and said, "I want you to bring Naruto to me for a meeting." A surprised Hinata tried to think of all the reasons as to why her father would want to meet Naruto, and considering what they were talking about, she had a strong feeling she knew why. "Fine, father, what should I say that this meeting is about?" "Tell him to bring his best seal's pitch," Hayashi answered. "Bottom of form. Top of form." A few days later Naruto walked into the Hyuga clan compound. It was a beautiful compound. It had white walls and a brown cosmetic-style roof with white lilies lining most of the outside of the compound. Naruto walked with Hinata into the largest building and sat in a room about the size of his entire apartment. Hinata told Naruto that he was going to be showing some of his seals to her father Hayashi and maybe selling some of them. So he got ready and pulled out a few scrolls and put them onto the coffee table that was in front of him. Naruto had a 2 feet wide scroll with a few seals written on it taking up most of the coffee table. After a few minutes of getting ready, Hayashi walked into the room and sat down across from Naruto. "Hello Hyuga-sama, Hinata told me that you were interested in some of my seals," Naruto said in a respectful tone. Sasasha, Hinata, and Hanabi's hard work with Naruto was showing. "I have a few questions for you before we talk about that," Hayashi said, and at Naruto's nod continued, "What level of sealer are you, Naruto?" Naruto thought about that for a moment. He had been very busy with his work and training, and said, "I'm a mid to high journeyman class sealer." Hayashi nodded and thought about what that meant for a moment. It meant that Naruto could construct and deconstruct moderately difficult seals. Hayashi looked to the seal that was on his coffee table and read what he could of it. The center of the seal had the kanji for fire inside a trio of elongated diamond shapes overlapping in a row. On the outside of the diamonds there was more writing that Hayashi thought was to control how hot the fire was. The last set of seals was a ring that he knew was a barrier seal, and the whole seal was about 1.5 feet across. "I am a bit interested in the security seals that you can make, tell me more about them," Hayashi said. Naruto just nodded and picked up one of the scrolls on the coffee table and said, "This is one of the first scroll security clamps I ever made." He then set the seal on the table and Hayashi saw the difference between the one his daughter had and the one on the table. This one only had the seal painted onto the metal and there was a lot more writing on the outside, while the one his daughter had a more compact seal and it was carved into the metal. Naruto turned on the small barrier seal on the table, then the fire seal on the scroll. The fire was a dark red and he said, "This seal will be fine in a fire this hot," but, as he said that, Naruto pumped more chakra into the seal and the fire went from dark red to red then to orange. At that point the seal and scroll began to blacken and burn. It can only withstand a heat of about 800 degrees Celsius. "My new ones are better than that though." Naruto then turned off the seal and took out the now burnt scroll and grabbed the other scroll that was more like the one that Hayashi had already seen and put that one on the seal in the middle of the seal on the table. "This one can take more punishment," and once again Naruto turned up the heat. Naruto went straight to orange this time, then to yellow, bright yellow, then finally to white. At white the scroll began to burn, but not much, just the edges began to burn and nothing more. "This seal can take about 1600 degrees of heat but not much more," Naruto said, turning off the seal and looking to Hayashi. "Is this about what you're looking for, Hyuga-sama?" Hayashi shook his head and said, "No, I need something that will protect our clan's secrets for a long time, and some of the oldest scroll can't be put under any unnecessary stress, something that wouldn't even let someone touch the scrolls if they have no right to. Can you make something like that, Naruto-san?" Naruto did have something like that. It was what he used to protect the scrolls and books in his own apartment, but did Naruto want to give some of his best security seals over to another clan? But before that, one of the other things that Hayashi said caught, "I have a way to copy old scrolls into new ones." Hayashi raised an eyebrow at that and said, "Can you now?" "Hi," Naruto said while taking out another scroll, "it's a seal's jutsu that I use once in a while when one of my scrolls gets too worn out." After saying that, there was a poof of smoke and a foot-long scroll was in his hand. Naruto rolled up the scroll that was on the coffee table and he laid down another. The seal on this scroll consisted of 2 round seals as big as the scroll connected by 2 lines of seals. Naruto then took out 2 normal 8-inch long scrolls and showed Hayashi that one was blank and the other was just a scroll with some of Naruto's notes in it. Naruto put the 2 scrolls in each circles in the seal, and put a small well of ink in the middle of the seal. He then went through a few hands seal and touched the seal on the paper. The seal glowed and the ink in the middle of the seal was pulled out of its well and flowed across the page, not leaving a mark on the seal. The ink was sucked into the ends of the blank scroll until there was no ink left. Naruto picked up both scrolls and handed them to Hayashi for him to look at. Hayashi saw that the scroll was copied perfectly. It even had an ink stain that the old scroll had that he suspected was from spilled ink, which meant that written notes could be transferred too. "This is good, but I would still want those security seals," Hayashi said. Naruto sighed at that and said, "There are a set of security seals that would do what you want, but they're some of the best seals I can make and I use them to protect my scrolls. I'm not really itching to let someone else have it." "What kind of seals are we talking about?" Hayashi asked. "I have a barrier seal on all my shelves. The barrier seal has several functions other than the obvious defense. It can filter out light, make the shelf airtight, and make it so the barrier look like a plane of glass so no one can see what's in the shelves. There is no way to get to the books or scrolls unless you have this seal," Naruto said as he turned over his right hand and channeled chakra to it, and a keyhole-shaped seal appeared on his hand. Hayashi looked at the seal on Naruto's hand and said, "That sounds like it would take a lot of power." Naruto closed his hand and nodded, "It does, but I found a way around that." "How?" Hayashi asked. "I have scrolls in my walls that absorb chakra that people naturally give off," Naruto said. Hayashi knew that, but he also knew something else. Would that work here? Hyuga pride themselves on their chakra control and we don't give off as much chakra as normal ninja. Naruto thought for a moment and asked, "How many people live in the compound?" "About 400, Hayashi answered. "That should be enough for about 10 to 12 good-sized shelves and a few desks even if they are Hyuga, and in a pinch you can just pump chakra into scrolls," Naruto said. "Desks?" Hayashi asked. "Some barrier seals to lock the drawer and make if so only people with the seal can take stuff of your desk and so the paperwork will be protected from fire or even spilled drink or ink," Naruto answered. Hayashi nodded. That was just what he was looking for. How much would that cost? Naruto sighed and rubbed the back of his head as he thought, "It's going to be quite a bit. Do you have a map of your compound? I need to know how many chakra scrolls I will need to make." It took about another hour to come to the number of 750,000 yen per shelf, 500,000 per desk, 100,000 per chakra scroll, and the sealing work to tie it all together. With 10 shelves, 4 desks, and 25 chakra scrolls the total came to 12 million yen for the whole job. Naruto's going to be busy for the next few weeks. Bottom of form. Flashback end. Top of form. Naruto had a little over 21 million yen in his account after doing that job for the Hyuga clan, and now the other clans were looking at him with interest. He may have a lot of jobs in the near future and not enough of him to go around. Maybe he could learn some clone jutsu to help him. The wind clones that Naruto can make weren't the greatest thinkers. Maybe there was another clone jutsu that could work. Naruto had a plan for all the money he now had. He was going to buy his apartment building. The apartment building wasn't a big one, it was 4 stories tall. It had 8 one-bedroom apartments on the top 2 floors, 6 two-bedrooms on the second floor, and 4 three-bedrooms on the ground floor. One of the ground floor rooms belonged to the old bat that owned the building. So here Hinata was walking to the Hokage Tower next to Naruto to help him convince the Hokage to let him buy his apartment building. They walked up to his office and asked the nice young secretary if they could see the Hokage. She said yes, and they went in. They saw the Hokage behind his usual mountain of paperwork. He was taking a break as he knew Naruto and Hinata were on their way. "Naruto, Hinata, how may I help you today?" Sarutobi asked. Naruto and Hinata took a seat and Naruto said, "I would like to buy my apartment building." Sarutobi was a little surprised at the sudden statement and thought about this for a moment and asked, "Do you have the money for that?" After Naruto gets all the money from my clan for the job that he did, he should have 21 million yen, and some of the other clans have been over to my home to see if Naruto is as good as he says he is. So I wouldn't be surprised if some of the other clans ask Naruto to get some work done. Hinata answered. The Hokage had to nod at that. The seals that Naruto had put into the Hyuga clan were some of his most advanced, and Sarutobi was thinking of having Naruto put some of them in his clan compound and into his office, even if the seals would protect his paperwork, not destroy it. Have you asked what she would sell it for? Not yet. Hinata thought it may look better if the Hokage asked and not two 15-year-olds. Naruto said. The Hokage had to nod at that and asked, can you handle the responsibility of owning that apartment? We were going to make it a good price for fresh genin as it's close to the training fields. A few of my friends already said that they would move in when I buy my apartment building, Naruto said. Sarutobi hummed at that and said, putting business with friends doesn't always work. Hinata answered at that, we figured if they could handle the responsibilities of a ninja, they can handle the responsibility of rent. That is a good point, Sarutobi thought to himself. They had already made a few good points, so he knew that Hinata and Naruto had at least thought about this decision. Sarutobi, Naruto, and Hinata talked for about another half hour, and at the end of their little business meeting Sarutobi agreed with Naruto and Hinata. He would make the pitch to the owner of the apartment building. Naruto was having a great week. The deal for his apartment went through and was cheaper than he thought it would be. He used the rest of the money he thought was going into buying the apartment for a bit of remodeling. Seeing as there few other tenants in the building, some of the other apartments had fallen to disrepair. With the remodeling, electrical, and plumbing inspection, Naruto didn't want any surprises when more tenants started coming. Tenten, Sasasha, and even Anko were some of his first new tenants. It was a good start. Not only that, but it was the last week of school at the academy and Naruto was looking forward to starting his life as a ninja. That's why for once Naruto isn't reading a sealing book in class. Alright, class graduation is just a week away, so let's make sure everyone has the basic 3 down, Irika said. Of course everyone but Naruto could do the basic 3, Bunshin no Jutsu, Henge no Jutsu, and the Kawarimi no Jutsu. No matter what Naruto did, he couldn't pull a small enough amount of chakra to make the jutsu work for that match. Naruto doesn't even do the Henge no Jutsu right. For Naruto it isn't an illusion, he really transforms, not that anyone notices. It got to Naruto's turn. He did Henge no Jutsu and the Kawarimi no Jutsu, but before he did the clone said, Irika, you know I can't do the Bunshin no Jutsu. I'm sorry Naruto, but you have to perform the jutsu to pass, Irika said. Then how did Rock Lee pass? Naruto asked. Irika was a little surprised by the question but answered, Rock Lee was only able to pass because he was Chunin level in Taijutsu and had a recommendation from a Jonin. So all I need is to have a skill at Chunin level and a recommendation from a Jonin? Naruto asked. Irika nodded and Naruto continued, great, I can do that. The Kurama clan owes me a favor, they got some Jonin right? I don't know about that Naruto, Sasasha said, the Kurama clan is a bit of a dying clan there, putting most of their future on Yakumo, bringing them back to their former strength. Naruto frowned at that, how about the Hyuga clan, I just did a huge job for them. Our father would want something in return, Hanabi said, or you could go with Anko. Naruto didn't like that he would have to give the Hyuga clan something after all the work he just did for them. Even if they did pay him, Anko could work, but she's still a special Jonin even if she is stronger than any 2 average Jonin. Irika interrupted them, that's not all you need Naruto, you also need a skill at Chunin level. I don't need to worry about that, Naruto said. Irika looked confused, what do you mean? What do you think the big job I did for the Hyuga was? Naruto said as he turns back to Irika, I just reworked the Fuinjutsu security in the Hyuga library for 12 million yen. This made everyone in the classroom's jaw hit the floor, other than Naruto's little group. At this Sasuke got angry and said, that's impossible. Naruto looked at Sasuke and said, I'm a journeyman class sealer and most Jonin don't have my level of skill, but if you need proof of that all we need to do is to go to the training fields outside. At that Naruto looked to Irika for an answer. Irika sighed and nodded, I need you to show me anyway. Naruto smiled and the whole class went out to the training fields and to the sparring circle. How are you going to show your skill to us, Naruto? Iruka asked. Naruto grinned and said, Sasasha, would you like to show off a little? Sure, Naruto, Sasasha answered as she walked into the sparring circle. Naruto then told everyone to move to Sasasha's side of the ring to get a good view of the seal he was going to use. With that, there was a poof of smoke on Naruto's arm, and a moment later everyone saw that it was now armored. The armor was blue, and starting at his hand was a gauntlet with 2 or 3 inch claws with metal plates covering the rest of his arm except his shoulder. There was a metal cap on his shoulder and another metal plate. There were seals carved into the armor from the gauntlet to the shoulder plate, which was the most visible. Alright, Sasasha, give me your best shot, Naruto said. Sasasha went through a few hand seals and called, Fire Style, Fireball Jutsu, and a 5 feet wide fireball launched itself at Naruto. All Naruto did was raise his arm and brace himself. The moment the fireball got within about a foot of Naruto, the seals on the armor glowed and the speeding fireball stopped. Iruka was about to jump in and get Naruto out of there when he saw the ball stop, and a moment later he saw why. A sealing formula was wrapped around the front of the ball, and within 2 seconds the whole fireball was wrapped and had already shrunk a foot in size. Another 5 seconds the fireball was gone. Iruka took a look at Naruto and saw that he wasn't completely unmoved. Naruto's feet had dug a small trench about a foot long and he was sweating a little. Iruka knew it wasn't from fatigue but from the heat of the fire. Iruka was about to walk over to Naruto to ask a few questions. Look, are you trying to give me a heart attack? When he saw that Naruto wasn't done. Naruto lifted his arm and pointed at Sasasha and yelled, Atch, and fired a fireball about a foot wide at her. Sasasha didn't bat an eye at the incoming fireball, and as it got within arm's reach she just batted it away like you would a beach ball, and it fell into pieces at her touch. Once again everyone in the class had to pick their jaws off the ground, not only at what Naruto just did but that Sasasha batted away a fireball like it was an annoying fly. Iruka walked over to Naruto and asked the obvious question, how did you do that? Naruto gave Iruka a huge grin and said, through the miracle of seals. How can seals do that? Sakura asked as she thought of all she knew about seals. She knew they can make flash and explosive bombs, sealing items, and are used to make traps. Seals can do anything you want them to as long as you know how to put it into a Fuinjutsu sealing matrix, Naruto said. Iruka asked the next question, what are the seals on that armor? Naruto looked at his armor and said, I have 5 different chakra absorption seals, 1 for each of the elements, reinforcement seals on the metal, 3 chakra manipulation seals, a water storage seal, and weapon storage seals. All of them are tied together into one sealing matrix. It's the best combat seal I have ever made, Naruto finished with a smile. Chakra manipulation seals? Iruka asked. They shape elemental chakra that I can't control myself, but I can only fire it back 3 forms, a ball, arcs, and streams of chakra, Naruto said. Even then the chakra forms aren't very strong, as you saw Sasasha just batted it aside, fire is her element. Iruka thought about that for a moment. It made sense, no one could control all 5 elements, so they would need help controlling those elements. That was one thing about the way Naruto said something that was bugging him. Naruto, the way you said elemental chakra that you can't control would imply that you can control an element. Yeah, Iruka, I have finished the first control exercise for wind and water and am working on the second one for wind, which is my primary element, Naruto said. This mystified Iruka. Naruto can control 2 elements to an extent that is nearly unheard of for a Chunin, let alone a Genin. Where did you even find the exercises to control elemental chakra? I found them in the Uchiha library, Naruto said. This angered Sasuke to no end and he nearly snarled, why were you in my clan's library? Sasasha stepped forward and said, I invited him in. Why? Sasuke asked, glaring at his sister. I had him dismantle all the security in the library so I could learn from all the scrolls, and as payment I let him learn from them too, Sasasha answered, not even giving the glare he was sending her way a second thought. He took down all the security, Sasuke asked with a bit of interest. It did nothing to the glare he was sending his sister. Naruto gave Sasuke a flat look and said, I did that over a year ago. The security in there was a joke, none of the seals in there were above journeyman level seals. Well, Sasuke knew what he was doing today and he dropped the subject, for now. Naruto turned to Iruka and said, "So is that good enough to pass without Bunshin no Jutsu, Iruka?" Iruka had a bit of a bewildered expression on his face and said, "I'll have to talk to the Hokage about this, but even if I do, you still need a recommendation from a Jonin." With that, they all went back into the classroom to finish class. The recommendation was easier than Naruto thought it would be. Naruto went to the Hyuga clan and asked them for the recommendation for a favor. Hayashi Hyuga agreed to give the recommendation, but he wanted the scroll replacement seal as payment. So the week flew by, and before Naruto knew it, he was proudly wearing his new leaf headband on his forehead with all his friends next to him. They were all going out to celebrate becoming genin. Well, that was the story that they would tell Hayashi anyway, as everyone but Naruto and Hinata went out to celebrate. They were going to go on a date, as they get very few chances to go on dates because Hayashi is almost always questioning Hinata and Hanabi on where they've been if they came home late. Bottom of form. So Naruto went for a classic, a picnic in one of the rarely used training grounds, and the date was going well in Naruto's opinion. The little bit of the food that was left was on the far end of the picnic blanket, and they couldn't have cared less about the spilled sake bottle next to them. As of right now, Naruto was missing his shirt with his hands under Hinata's shirt messaging her breasts. Hinata on the other hand had her arms around the back of Naruto's neck and her legs wrapped around his waist as they were having a particularly heated makeout session. Naruto was trying to get Hinata's shirt to go where her sweatshirt was next to Hinata that he almost missed the snap of branches not too far away from them. Then the whistling of weapons passing through the air, Naruto saw Hinata freeze at that. "Naruto," Hinata said. Naruto sighed at that. They were getting to the good part. "Yeah, I hear it, can you check where they are?" Naruto was pulling down Hinata's shirt and getting up as he said this. Hinata was already on it. She saw two people about 150 meters away to her right and she recognized them. "Naruto, it's Iruka and Mizuki, they're fighting." Naruto looked a bit confused at that. "They're training?" he asked. They were in a training ground after all. Hinata's face scrunched up a bit and looked closer. Iruka was cut in a few places with a pretty bad cut on his right side. Mizuki on the other hand was nearly uninjured, just a few bruises, but what got her attention was the scroll on his back with the word forbidden on it. Hinata concentrated on the scroll and started to read. It's not a widely known fact that the Hyuga could do this, and the more she read the more she knew what the situation was. "No, Mizuki has stolen a scroll with the word forbidden on it. It's about 3 feet long and 10 inches wide," Hinata reported. Naruto, hearing this, as he put back on his own shirt, thinks of his clan scroll that was about that size and all the secrets that it holds. "Where are they, Hinata?" Hinata, straightening up her clothes, pointed to their right and answered, "That way, 160 meters. Naruto nodded and said, "I'll go in first and be loud what for a chance to stick." Hinata nodded, and they took off the way Hinata had pointed. It only took a few moments to get to Iruka, and Mizuki and Hinata had already disappeared into the trees while Naruto stuck to the ground. The first thing Naruto saw as he got to the small clearing was that Mizuki had already pulled his arm back to throw a windmill shuriken. By the time that the shuriken had left Mizuki's hand, Naruto was already in the path of it. Naruto reached into his pocket and pulled out a seal and said, "Fuinjutsu style, Bakudo Tenseishi no Sakai, Great Divide." With that, the seal in Naruto's hand burnt and a circle of what looked like purple glass about a meter wide was put in the path of the shuriken. The windmill shuriken hit the barrier and small cracks formed in the barrier, and the shuriken stayed in the barrier about an inch of the way into it. Iruka saw Naruto the moment he entered the clearing and was about to tell him to run when he saw Naruto's barrier go up and stop the shuriken. A moment later the barrier shattered and the weapon fell to the ground at Naruto's feet. "What the hell are you doing, Mizuki?" Naruto yelled at one of his teachers. A surprised Iruka looked at Naruto and the now stopped windmill shuriken and asked, "Naruto, what are you doing out here?" Naruto, not looking back at Iruka, answered, "Enjoying a night out. How about you, Iruka?" "Naruto, get out of here. Mizuki is stealing the forbidden scroll." "Tell the Hokage where Mizuki is," Iruka urged. Mizuki just laughed at that and said, "Do you really think I will let him get away, Iruka?" My original plan was going to have Naruto steal this for me as an extra way to pass the exam. Mizuki said the last part with sarcasm, but he was able to pass so I had to do it myself. Naruto looked a bit confused and asked, why me? Mizuki gave a wicked little smile at that and said, have you ever wondered why the village hates you, Naruto? No, Mizuki, it's forbidden, Iruka yelled at Mizuki. Mizuki wasn't deterred in the least and continued, the fourth Hokage didn't kill the QB, he put it in you, Naruto. You are the QB, you are a demon. Both Iruka and Mizuki looked to Naruto, who had his head down and was shaking. Iruka, quickly fearing the worst, said, Naruto, it's not true, you aren't a demon, you are. Iruka trailed off as he saw that Naruto wasn't upset at what was said. Naruto was laughing. Mizuki saw this the same time Iruka did and it pissed him off. What are you laughing at? Mizuki screamed at Naruto. Naruto's laugh quieted down and he said to the people in the clearing, I have been practicing Fuinjutsu for 2 years and you don't think I wouldn't find the biggest and most complex seal I have ever seen and not look to see what it does. Yo, you know already, Naruto? Iruka asked, a bit shocked. Naruto looked at Iruka out of the corner of his eye and smiled at him. Yeah, Iruka, I found it out about a year ago. Haven't met the QB yet, but I think that is only a matter of time, Naruto said. Iruka still looked a little shocked to all of that. Mizuki was just pissed that he couldn't see a shocked look on Naruto's before he killed him. It wasn't going to stop him from killing Naruto. Mizuki didn't need more than a moment to throw his other windmill shuriken. Naruto looked fully to Mizuki the moment he heard the click of the shuriken when it came off Mizuki's back. Iruka watched the next few moments in shock. Mizuki threw the shuriken with the intent to cleave Naruto too. Naruto just brought up his hand and as Iruka watched the shuriken seemed to slow a bit. The next moment Naruto caught it by the center ring and kept it spinning beside him. Mizuki had started to charge Naruto the moment the shuriken had left his hand. Naruto saw the shocked look on Mizuki's face when he just caught the shuriken like it was nothing dangerous and smiled, then threw it back. Iruka saw Naruto throw the shuriken and in mid-flight on its way to Mizuki it sped up. Mizuki wasn't expecting this chain of events, but he wasn't a chunin for no reason. He was able to get out of the way of the speeding weapon, mostly. Blood dripped to the grass from a gash on Mizuki's side about 8 inches long just under his ribs. Mizuki stopped for a moment and put his hand to the gash looking at it. He looked up to Naruto with a sneer only to see him a foot away with his fist beeped back. A punch drove into Mizuki's face like Naruto was trying to hit the Hokage tower from where he stood. Mizuki hit the tree behind him with enough force to crack the bark. Mizuki looked up to see Naruto holding another seal saying, Fuinjutsu style, Bakudo 15 Hitsuji no Kugi, coffin nails. Then 8 yellow rods about 6 inches long flew at Mizuki. The rod struck into Mizuki's limbs, 2 in each, and he screamed as an electric shock went through his body knocking him out. That may have lasted longer if you had taken me seriously, Naruto said to Mizuki's unconscious form, Hinata. Iruka was startled when Hinata Hyuga dropped down from a tree right next to him. She started to go over his injuries the moment she was on the ground to see what she could do. Naruto, do you have any supplies with you? Hinata asked. Naruto just smiled and said, don't I always? With a poof of smoke he handed Hinata paper and ink. Iruka looked between Naruto and Hinata, what are you two doing way out here? We wanted to get some privacy for our date, Naruto answered with a smile. Iruka looked from Naruto to a blushing Hinata writing out a seal and asked, date? Naruto just continued to smile showing a lot of teeth and answered, yeah, and we were just getting to the good part. Good part? Iruka asked with a bit of curiosity in his voice. Why yes Iruka, the part where Hinata was on her back while I played her like an instrument, she was making the loveliest of music, Naruto said as his smile became a bit lecherous. Iruka looked a bit concerned at that and asked, Naruto, you weren't, do I need to give you the talk? No Iruka, we haven't done the thing you're thinking of, but with me studying Genjutsu and quite a few girls to try it out on, well I know plenty of ways to make a woman feel good, Naruto said. As for giving me the talk, I don't think you can tell me anything I don't already know, unless you want to give me some tips and maybe I can give you some too. Irika had to blush at that last bit and looked to Hinata who was still working on the seal she was making with a blush you could roast marshmallows on. Irika decided to drop the subject for now so Hinata could continue what she was doing without passing out. It only took a few more minutes for Hinata to make a few seals to help with the pain and to start to heal the cuts. With that done, Naruto deactivated the seal on Mizuki and tied him up, and they took him and the forbidden scroll to the Hokage Tower. After the weekend, the newly minted genin were sitting in their class waiting for their teacher. It only took a few minutes for Irika to get to the last day of class for these students. "I would like to congratulate everyone on passing and becoming genin of the village," Irika said with a smile which was reflected by nearly everyone in the room. "Now that you are genin, you will be put into their man teams." With that said, Irika began naming teams. Team 7 Sasasha, Naruto, and Sasuke, you will be with Kakashi Hatake, Irika said. Hinata was a little disappointed not being on Naruto's team, and Sasasha no being on a team with her brother was going to be a pain in the ass. Naruto knew that he could work well with Sasasha, but with all that she had told him about her brother this may not be fun. Sasuke wasn't happy to be on a team at all and just gave his sister and Naruto a dirty look. Team 8 will be Hinata, Sakura, with Yakumo, an apprentice of Kurenai with Kurenai, Irika continued. Hinata was a little happy to be on a team with Yakumo and Kurenai. Sakura was sad to not be on the same team as Sasuke while wondering how the new girl was. Team 9 is still in circulation, Team 10 is Ino, Shikamaru, and Choji with Asuma Sarutobi, Irika continued. Ino was put off QT the fact that she wasn't teamed up with anyone that know what she could do. As she thought on that a bit more, she smiled. Shikamaru and Choji may not knew of her new strength, but she could always show them. Shikamaru shivered at the smile on Ino's face, but he and Choji were happy to be on the same team. And Team 11 will be Kiba, Shino, and Hanabi with Hana Inuzuka, Irika finished. Hanabi was fine with her team and know that Hana would be a good teacher. Shino was as stoic as ever, and Kiba was just inspired that his sister was a jonin now. With the teams made, Irika wished them good luck and left the room. One by one teams walked out the door, and by the time 20 minutes went by, all but 3 genin had left the room. Naruto and Sasasha didn't mind at first. Naruto just read a scroll he had brought with him sitting next to Sasasha, and Sasasha just putting feet up on the desk in front of her and closed her eyes. After the first hour, Naruto was thoroughly irritated. He could be doing important things right now, like managing his apartment building, helping Ten learn more Genjutsu, working on his next commission of seals, driving Hanabi out of her mind in his apartment's basement, forging new weapons, or turning Hinata into a pile of mush. Important things like that, not sitting in a classroom waiting on his new teacher. How was an hour late? Naruto leaned over to whisper something to Sasasha, and she smiled. A moment later she got out her violin that she kept in a seal on her at all times. As she began to play, Naruto leaned back and closed his eye to let the music wash over him. Sasuke looked out of the corner of his eye at his sister and snorted. Why she had taken up such a useless hobby. Over the next hour Sasasha continued to play and Naruto just relaxed next to her. When the doors opened, all hell broke loose. A man with silver hair walked in then, and when Sasasha stopped playing, the room seemed to shimmer. The man Naruto, Sasasha, and Sasuke assumed to be Kakashi saw it immediately and broke the illusion, but the moment before he broke it, Naruto made a single-hand seal. Kakashi only took a moment to take in the room. There were 5 kunai launchers all around the room, all aimed at the door he was standing in. Kakashi moved on reflex to get out of the room and closed the door to get out of all 5 lines of fire. As he tried to make a small jump back, he ran into something. A barrier had been set up to keep him in the room. At that same moment 5 shots were fired at the same time. Each kunai launchers fired a scattering of a number of balls the size of large marbles. They hit Kakashi and the area around him in a cloud of glitter. Naruto almost fell out of his seat at the now glittering man. Sasasha just smiled and giggled a little. Sasuke's eyes just narrowed at what his sister and the class idiot of them had made a trap that caught a jonin in the room he was in without him noticing that anything was wrong. It pissed him off all the more. Kakashi, sparkling from head to toe, just looked at the three genin in the room and said, "My first impression is, I don't like you." Naruto, getting his laugh under control, and pointed at Kakashi, "You don't like us, you're the one 2 hours late, some of us have other things to do." Kakashi looked to Naruto and said questioning, "Oh." Naruto just snorted, "Yeah, I need to finish a job I have for the steel fan shop, go over the utilities with Hinata on my apartment building I own, and I have some meetings with some new tenants in the apartment." "You own an apartment building?" Kakashi asked. "You bought it a few months ago." "I'm a good half hour late now, but Hinata is probably taking care of it," Naruto said. Kakashi thought on that for a moment and shrugged, "Meet me on the roof." With that left in a swirl of leaves and glitter. Naruto and Sasasha got up together and walked out of the room with Sasuke a little behind them. They got to the roof a minute later to see their new teacher sparkling in the afternoon sun reading an orange book. "Okay, let's begin with some interdictions, your likes, dislikes, hobbies, and dreams for the future," Kakashi said. "How about you go first, sensei?" Sasasha said. "Me, well, my name is Hatake Kakashi. As for my likes and dislikes," Kakashi said with a questioning tone at the end. "My dreams for the future, I have lots of hobbies," Kakashi finished with an eye smile. "Great, we learned his name," Sasasha thought with a snort. "Well, I guess I'll go next. My name is Sasasha Uchiha. I like to train and play the violin. I dislike a few things. My hobbies are playing the violin and reading, and as for my dream, I'll keep that to myself." Naruto went next. "My name is Naruto Uzumaki. I like fuinjutsu, ramen, and training with my friends. I dislike the 3 minutes it takes to make ramen, and my dream is to be Hokage," Naruto finished with a big smile. Sasuke went last. "I don't like anything. I dislike too many things to list and don't have a dream but an ambition to bring my clan to its former glory and kill a certain person." Sasasha had to stop herself from rolling her eyes at that. I mean, really, what Uchiha doesn't want to see Itachi died? She was just not going to make that her only reason to live. Naruto had a good idea of how Sasuke was talking about but really couldn't get why Sasuke was so focused on the killing part. Sasasha wasn't, so why was Sasuke? "Well, I have one well-adjusted Avenger, a teen with a big, and an Avenger not well-adjusted at all," Kakashi thought to himself. "Well, with introductions out of the way, let's begin our first team exercise." Naruto was more than happy to get started. "So what are we doing first?" "Survival training," Kakashi said. This just confused everyone and Naruto protested, "We already did survival training in the academe. This training will be different as you're going to be against me," Kakashi said. Sasasha chimed in, "How is that going to be any different? I mean, you're strong, but it's still just training." "I'm glad you asked, because what makes this different is that out of the 30 graduates that passed, only about a third of them will become real genin," Kakashi said with an eye smile. Naruto, shocked at this, yelled, "Then what was the point of the test at the academe?" Kakashi just waved Naruto off and said, "Oh, that was just to select the students that had the potential to be genin. Tomorrow you will be tested on training filed 7, bring all your ninja gear and don't eat breakfast or you'll throw up." Kakashi turned around and finished, "Be at training ground 7 at 8, and he left in a poof of smoke and glitter, leaving 3 thinking genin behind. Ino, Shikamaru, and Choji had just finished their meeting with their new sensei Asuma, and after he left, Ino asked for the rest of her team to stay for a minute. Ino looked to Shikamaru and Choji and said, "If we are going to be on a team together, you need to know what I can really do." Choji looked a little confused at that, but Shikamaru's eyes narrowed at that. Shikamaru may be lazy, but he wasn't stupid. He knows that Naruto and his little group were stronger than they were letting on at the academe. The demonstration a week age all be confirmed it. Shikamaru also know that Ino was now training with them and had been for about 6 or 7 months. So Ino could very well be stronger than them as they haven't trained together in a while. "What do you mean?" Choji asked. "You're about to find out. I'm going all out from the get-go, so be ready," Ino answered. With that said, made the tiger seal and said, "Release." Choji just held up his hands and said, "Wait, what's going on?" Shikamaru looked at Choji as he got on one knee, forming the rat seal. "The two of us are going to fight Ino. Take this seriously, Choji." Choji looked from Shikamaru to Ino. how was in a fighting stances that he hadn't seen Shias before, still confused but did what Shikamaru said. As soon as Ino saw that they were both ready she charged. They were only about 15 feet apart but Ino was on top of them in no more than a second. Choji brought up an arm to block Ino's first strike but her arm bent around the block. Ino struck at the center of Choji's chest. It hurt a hell of a lot more than he thought it would but he powered through as he struck back. As he did Shikamaru also struck with his shadow and as they both struck Ino bent left to dodge Choji's punch and Shikamaru's shadow on the ground as she threw a few more punches at Choji's extended arm. It went like that for a minute, Ino coming in for quick strikes and dancing out of the way of the shadows and punches. Then Shikamaru throw a trio of kunai and Ino forcing her to jump back. With that Choji more quickly back to Shikamaru's side. She wasn't that good at taijutsu before, Choji said not taking his eyes off Ino. Shikamaru just nodded and said, she's not striking hard, she's striking at pressure point. She's also putting all the power of her punches on only one of her knuckles to make it hurt a lot more. Choji nodded at that last part as he saw that too. With that said they saw Ino take out a pair of fans. They were white fans with dark purple ends that matched her clothes. There was also a vine-like design on them with several purple flowers also the color of her clothes. Ino raised one of her fans and brought it down, as if she was holding a sword not a fan, and a near-invisible blade of wind came speeding out of the fan. Shikamaru and Choji broke apart to get out of the way of the blade, with that Ino went after Choji again. Choji and Ino were back at close combat this time Ino was using her fans to strike at him. Choji had to say that it was effective, the fans when folded up had a sharp point. So now he could take the strikes he had to dodge or knock them aside. Choji was doing the best he could but Ino just seemed to get faster and faster with each passing minute. Shikamaru was supporting him the best he could. He had given up on using his shadow and know that Choji was better than him in close combat so he went with the next best option. He was throwing kunai and shuriken at Ino to take some pressure off of Choji. It didn't get much pressure off of Choji as when a kunai or a shuriken came at her she would bend around it or if that wasn't possible she would open her fan and throw a gust of wind at it knocking it off course. The toe on one exchange of blow went on like that for another 2 or 3 minutes. Then Choji ran into a bit of a problem, he could barely lift his arms to block anymore. When that happened Ino went for another sword strike with her fan and a blade of wind came at Choji intent on cutting him in half. He was able to get just out of the way as the blade of wind cut a trough in the ground 6 feet long and about 4 inches deep. With that they all stopped, Shikamaru didn't much look worse for wear but he wasn't the one taking the beating. Choji on the other hand was breathing hard and had half a dozen shallow cuts on each of his arms from Ino's fans. Ino had taken a blow here and there but they were all just glancing blows. She was breathing a bit deeply but it was controlled unlike Choji how was taking in gulps of air. Shikamaru decided to start the conversation that no was going to be a drag, what's a nice pair of fans you have there Ino. Ino smiled looking at the fans, thanks, Naruto made them for me. What are they made of? Choji asked, he had noted during their fight that they didn't feel, what little he could feel when he was knocking them aside, or have the right look to be steel. I don't know, Ino answered, but they seem to bring my chakra when I give it to them. Ino had tried to do the same thing with a kunai a few times and it always took 3 or 4 times longs to just coat them and forget about sending out wind blades. She had just finished the first wind control exercise a few days age and that was only because she had Naruto's help. She was holding off on the next step in wind control or any other element. Ino still had plenty to learn from Anko. Shikamaru sighed, we have a lot to talk about don't we? Ino just nodded with a smile and Shikamaru just sighed again. Naruto went home after meeting his new sensei to check in with Hinata. She had taken care of the meetings that he had missed so they went over the utilities to get a good grasp on what they were going to be every month. After that was done Naruto headed to the basement to see how the other huge EA in his building was doing. When he got there he saw Hanabi working on something. It was kind of like a cart but a bit smaller and no place to hook up a horse. In place of that there was a heck of a lot of metal in the front of the cart. There was one thing he did recognize. One of his chakra storage scrolls was attached to the big hunk of metal. Hanabi was working on the big hunk of metal and her earth spirit, Burakusuden, was in the form of an overly detailed earth golem. Burakusuden was about 6 feet tall and was in the form of a man made of a glassy black stone. But the creepy part of the golem was the empty-looking all-black eyes. Burakusuden was putting on a big wheel on the cart make of what Naruto thought was rubber. He saw Naruto as he was working on the wheel and nodded to him. He wasn't much of a talker. Naruto nodded back and walked up to Hanabi. She was face away from him and the stairs. She was too into her work to notice him coming down the stairs. Naruto came up behind Hanabi, put his arms around her, just under her chest, with his head on her shoulder. Hanabi jumped a little but settled down almost immediately, as only her and Naruto had a key and the password seal to get to the basement, and Burakusuden hadn't warned her of an intruder. "What are you working on now, Hanabi?" Naruto asked as he got a better look at what she had been doing to his basement. Hanabi relaxed in Naruto's grip and ran one of her hands around his neck and the other on his hands, getting grease and oil on Naruto's neck and hands from her dirty hands. "A motorized cart, no horse needed," Hanabi answered. Naruto just hummed at that and looked around the basement. Naruto was letting Hanabi use the basement of the apartments as her personal workshop. Hanabi had set up several tables with all the electronics they could get their hands on. A few bookshelves were against the wall, full of books and journals. The last thing in the room was the broken computer he had given her. It was not to the shelves up and running. "You've been busy, Hanabi, but I think you need a break. You have been down here since finishing up with your new team," Naruto said, finishing with a bit of a question. "Yeah, I have, but I'm almost done with the cart," Hanabi answered as she pushed off Naruto to get to a wheel in the cart. She sat down in the seat at the wheel and pushed a button, and with a bit of a roar the motor turned on. "It's about ready for a test run outside," Hanabi said as she got out of the car and walked around to the front of the cart to see if anything wasn't working right or if there were any odd vibrations. Naruto coming to her side and said, "I think you've worked enough today." He then took her hand and pulled her over to a small couch that was on one side of the basement. "It's time to relax and maybe a shower." Naruto finished settling Hanabi down on the couch. She didn't fight him. The next morning Naruto, Sasasha, and Sasuke walked into the 7th training field 10 or 15 minutes before 8 to see no one there waiting for them. So they all had a seat near the 3 stumps in the field and they waited, and Naruto's patience for this ended about 30 minutes. At that point Naruto had a plan and he and Sasasha disappeared into the woods. Over the next 3 hours Sasuke didn't see Naruto or Sasasha, but he knew they were still at the training ground from the sounds in the woods. Twigs breaking, tree branches creaking, and the rustling of leaves, but that brought up the question of what they were doing. As Sasuke thought on this he came to the logical conclusion, they were setting up traps, but before he could think all too hard on that their new sensei Kakashi appeared in a poof of smoke. From the top of the fence Kakashi was standing on, he looked to the field to see only Sasuke and asked, "Yo, where are your teammates?" Sasuke looked toward the trees not too far from him, and as he did Naruto and Sasasha walked out of the trees. Naruto was glaring at Kakashi and Sasasha had on a neutral expression. They were both wearing different clothes than they had in the academe. Sasasha had on a black vest and pants with red trim and the Uchiha crest on the back, mesh armor with long sleeves, and black gloves. She also had on black and red kunai and shuriken pouches on her legs and waist, with a sword with a red wood almost the color of blood across her back. Naruto also had a vest on, but it was dark blue and had a burnt orange colored X design covering the front and back with a red Uzumaki swirl on the back too. He had on dark blue paints on too with the same burnt orange color running down the side with tan kunai and shuriken pouches. The last thing on Naruto that all in the field saw was the Fuinjutsu design going up and down both his arms. Kakashi, seeing all his new potential students, and taking a better look at the sword and the Fuinjutsu, hopped down from the fence and over to the 3 logs buried in the ground and took out a clock. "Now that everyone is here we can get started," said looking to the 3 teens as he took out 2 bells. "The test today is to get one of these bells from me. If you don't you get sent back to the academe," Kakashi said. Naruto looked at the 2 bells and asked, "Why are there only 2 bells?" Kakashi gave an eye smile and answered, "It's so one of you is garnet to go back to the academe." Naruto and everyone else got a serious look on their face at that, and Kakashi continued, use any weapons you like, and if you don't come at me with the intent to kill you won't get a bell. You have till noon, we begin when I say start. Any questions? He saw none and said, start. With that, 2 of the 3 teens disappeared into the woods and Naruto just stood there smiling at Kakashi. You know, compared to the others you're a bit wired, Kakashi said. Naruto just chuckled at that and said, like we can really hide from you. Kakashi had to raise an eyebrow at that, because he was right, and he swept his senses over the field and found Sasuke 40 yards away in a tree observing him and Naruto. Sasasha was. Kakashi scanned the surrounding once, twice, and a few more times but didn't find a trace of Sasasha. That shouldn't be possible, a genin hiding from an experienced jonin. He looked back to Naruto to just see him smile a bit bigger. You know, sensei, I should thank you, this test is perfect for me. Kakashi's eyes narrowed at that. I mean, if you had given us another kind of test. I was just going to lay out a few traps for you when you got here, but you took too long. I mean, really, sensei, you gave 2 journeyman class sealers 3 hours to construct the field of battle. Naruto went through a few seals quickly, as Kakashi's eyes widened at what he said, and slammed his hand into the ground. There was a pulse of chakra and Kakashi felt like he had gained about 300 pounds and Naruto rushed him. Naruto came at him with speed a Chunin would be proud of and stared with a jab at Kakashi's head. Kakashi saw it coming and was still able to get out of the way even now at more than twice his normal weight. Naruto didn't give him an inch though, aiming at any opening he saw. The taijutsu exchange lasted for about a minute before Kakashi tried to make some room with some shuriken, and that was when he figured out what was keeping him so wanted down, magnetism. As Kakashi threw the shuriken and not a foot from his hand veered down and stuck to the ground. The armor on his body was pulling him down, making it seem like he weighed more. Almost immediately he took off all his kunai and shuriken pouches on his body and lost about 50 pounds, all the while fighting Naruto. Kakashi thought of a way to stop the Fuinjutsu that Naruto had set up while still fighting. It had to be some kind of barrier seal set in this specific area. He looked to Sasuke, who was now on the ground having fallen out of the tree as he was suddenly pulled down. So Kakashi, you know, the field at least went into the trees, and that Naruto must have a counter seal on him, as he could see the chainmail shirt Naruto had on, to remain unaffected. But Naruto wasn't using any weapons either, so the seal probably only affected things on his person. With that information, Kakashi substituted himself with a log and headed into the trees to find the edge of the seal and take out the seals holding it in place. He found out a moment later that was what Naruto wanted. The moment he crossed into the tree line, about 4 dozen light blue tendrils shot out of the ground and tried to ensnare him. About a dozen were successful, wrapping around his legs and one arm when he was in the air, jumping away from the rest. They pulled him back down, and on the way there he heard the sound of something burning. As he hit the ground he became the center of a shooting gallery of purple spheres. Even with the limited movement that Kakashi had, and about 50 purple balls of energy coming at him, he was able to dodge or block most of them. He blocked with the tendrils that were on his arm to blow them off. The firing only lasted a few seconds, and after the firing stopped there were only a few glancing blowing on his body and a few direct hits on legs. He couldn't really move them as they were tied to the ground. Kakashi used his hands to rip the tendrils off his legs and moved into the trees a bit more cautiously. While all that was going down, Sasasha was just at the tree line, between 2 trees, just watching. She was standing in plain sight too, well she would be if it wasn't for the 2 seals hiding her. The first one was a seal on the ground that masked her presence from most senses. While in this seal she couldn't be heard, smelt, and sensed by chakra in most cases, Hana had been a great help in making this seal. The other seal was tied between the 2 trees that Sasasha was. It was a sheet that hid her from sight by making a picture of what was behind it and changes that image in real time. The one flaw in this seal was that where the person standing behind the sheet didn't moor in real time. Naruto had made this one as a way to hide a camping tent in plain sight. Sasasha was looking through the sheet and watching the fight between Naruto and Kakashi with her Sharingan on, learning all she could about the way Kakashi fought. The magnetic seal had thrown him off a little, but he still wasn't taking them seriously, but she would take what she could. Her Sharingan wasn't quite complete yet, but it was getting there, and the more she watched the easier it would be to predict what Kakashi would do next. When Kakashi ran at the trees, she activated all the seals in the trees. They had them off on the off chance that he would feel them early or Sasuke would set them off early. If any hit Sasuke now, she wasn't going to lose any sleep over it. With Kakashi hitting the first set of traps, she came out from behind the seal and came over to Naruto. How was going thou, and sealing away all the weapons that Kakashi throw away. Sasasha came over to Naruto's side and asked, anything good? Not much, just the basics, kunai, shuriken, wire, a few paper bombs, and this. Naruto pulled out an orange book and held it out to her. Sasasha took it, recognizing it from somewhere, and flipped through it and realizing it was one of the books from the Ika Ika series. The book series was in the Henjutsu section of the Uchiha library for some reason. Sasasha hummed and thought as she flopped through the book, we may be able to use this. Really? Naruto asked. Sasasha nodded and flipped to the inside cover and showed it to Naruto and said, it's signed by the author, so could threaten to destroy it, and if nothing else we know that he's a pervert, and me and you have some experience with Henjutsu. Naruto grinned at that. I can work with that. Let's start with that first. As he said that, he felt the magnetic seal go down as Kakashi presumably took out one of the seal, holding it up. Sasasha smiled too at that. What do you have in mind? A few moments later, Kakashi was back in the field to see both Sasasha and Naruto now standing there. Sasasha was behind Naruto and had out her violin. He looked at the field to see that they had taken away the weapons that he dropped. Smart, he had underestimated them. Sasasha was probably going to use some game jutsu with her violin to throw him off, and Naruto was going to attack him and protect Sasasha. It was a pretty good idea, and most game jutsu users have a system like that. Sasasha had her Sharingan spinning as she put her violin to her shoulder and said, ready for round 2, sensei. Kakashi got into a loose stance, taking this a bit more seriously, and saw that Naruto had another surprise for him. Naruto across with his index and middle finger on his hand and said, Kage Bunshin no Jutsu, and 7 clones appeared around him. Kakashi's eyes narrowed at the Kenjutsu and asked, where did you learn that? Naruto smiled and said, I learned it while catching a traitor. With that said, he another hand seal, and there was another poof of smoke. Hinata and Naruto went back to his apartment after taking to the Hokage about what happened with the traitor. They had both been given the pay for a B-rank mission, and it put on their records. Hinata had pulled Naruto back to his apartment afterwards, not that Naruto was complaining. Naruto thought they were going to start off where they left off, but Hinata went to the desk he had in his room and picked up a pen and scroll and began to write. Naruto came up behind her and hugged her gently as to not disturb her writing, and read over her shoulder as he kissed her neck. Hinata was writing out jutsu one after another. Naruto smiled as he read one after another and said, have I told you how much I love you tonight, Hinata? Hinata stopped writing and turned around in Naruto's arms and said, yes you have, Naruto, but I can always hear it again, as she went to kiss him, and they got back to what they were doing before the improvised mission. After the smoke cleared, instead of 7 Narutos there were 7 women from the age of 17 to 30 in all different shapes and sizes. One of them looked like Naruto if he was a girl. 2 more looked like twins in their teens with short red hair with an athletic build. One other had long black hair around 30 with a body most women would kill for, and the clone next to that one looked like her daughter with black hair like her mother with a body looking like it would be as good as her mother. The last 2 were on either side of Sasasha and looked just as good as the rest. Kakashi looked to the formation of the clones and thought, so 2 will stay back and protect Sasasha and 5 will come at me, and while they attack Sasasha will be making Gain Jutsu as support. Not a bad plan, and it shows teamwork, at least for these 2. But why are they all women? Sasasha started to play and Naruto attacked, and as Kakashi was about to attack one of the clones he found out why they were all women. As the woman about 30 attacked him, she was suddenly nude in front of him, and it distracted him for about half a second. Kakashi had to block the punch as he was too distracted to dodge. Kakashi broke the Gain Jutsu a moment later and the women had clothes again, but Sasasha kept playing and the twins were nude next as they throw kunai at him. Kakashi got out of the way of the kunai and brought the Genjutsu a second later and without the distraction saw that the kunai were glowing and substituted himself with a log a second before they explodes, and the log was torn to splinters. This may be harder than I thought, Kakashi thought as he looked to Sazasha, who was staring at him with her Sharingan spinning. Oh, and the two girls that were supposed to be protecting her were making out in front of her and again their clothes vanished. Then the clones were on top of him again. And so the cycle repeated itself over and over again and Sazasha played faster and faster and as Kakashi got used to fighting nude clones other things began to change. Like one clone being closer than it appeared and getting a good hit in or the clone that looked like it throw a shuriken only for it to be a moment after a broken Genjutsu to be a windmill shuriken that almost took his head off. Well, he did tell them to come at him with the intent to kill. The nude clone Genjutsu wasn't a problem anymore. No, it was the two clones near Sazasha because she didn't need a Genjutsu anymore for those to be nude anymore as they into some petting now. Kakashi was losing blood at the real-life porn that was being performed in front of him. One by one though Kakashi popped the clones leaving only the women around 30, the two clones near Sazasha, and Sazasha herself. Kakashi couldn't bring himself to pop to the two clones near Sazasha, his inner pervert wouldn't let him. I mean, what harm are they doing? I have to say you two have made this more interesting than I thought it would be, Kakashi said looking at either Naruto or Sazasha. As he said this Naruto dropped the disguise of the 30 old women and Sazasha stopped playing and put her violin away. Sazasha smiled at that and said, "Why thank you Kakashi-sensei, I have been working on my Genjutsu for a long time now and I find it easier to make more layers to it by using different mediums." As she said this she turned to her brother and said, "Enjoy the show Sasuke?" Kakashi had to look to Sasuke at that and saw a blush on his face as he stared out into the field. Sazasha held out a hand to Naruto at that and Naruto scowled, "That proves nothing." Sazasha just raised an eyebrow at him and Naruto continued, "That was me out there not a girl, it proves nothing." Sazasha just stared, and Naruto sighed, "Fine," and took out his wallet and counted out a few bills and slapped them into her hand. Kakashi raised an eyebrow at that and asked, "What was that about?" "We had a bet whether my brother was guy or not, I won," Sazasha said as she counted and pocketed the money. "Oh come on," Naruto said in a huff, "he has all those girls and he doesn't even look at them. I think the only reason Sasuke is embarrassed is that it was me nude out there." At that Kakashi turned a little green as he figured out that he was searing at two guys making out not two hot chicks. Sasuke in a fit of anger that anyone would think he was gay threw a series of kunai and shuriken at Naruto and yelled, "You thought I was gay?" Naruto only looked at the incoming weapons and they all missed him by inches. "Of course I did, you had Ami, Sakura, and Ino after you and you won't even give them the time of day, well you used to have Ino," said muttering the last part. Sasuke just gritted his teeth, "This is the first bet I've ever lost. I wonder if I can change my bet in the class pool," Naruto finished. "Class pool," Sasuke said through clenched teeth. Naruto just looked at him and said, "Yeah, all the boy in the class have a pool going on when you're going to come out of the closet." At this point Kakashi was fighting a losing battle not to laugh but he didn't miss the face that the weapons that came at him didn't just miss, they veered off course a little. "Sasuke came down and get out here and help us," Sazasha said. "Why should I?" Sasuke asked. "Because if you done Naruto will win the class pool when I tell the class that you were perving on two of Naruto's clones," Sazasha said with a bit of a bloodthirsty smile. Naruto perked up at that the time he had picked was over in the next few days, and that was a lot of money. Sasuke gritted his teeth harder but came out into the field at the piece of blackmail his sister had over his head. At that Kakashi smiled a little, hey it wasn't traditional teamwork but he could work with it, they passed just barely. The end. So how was this part? I hope you like it. And if you like it share this part with your friends, and like the video too. And don't forget to subscribe our channel for daily awesome fanfiction. Okay it's time for me to go. Bye bye.